Yeah, so without further ado, I'm Martin Kessler. I'm co-founder of ShapeScale. And with me today is Dr. Johnny Franco, who is a board certified plastic surgeon whose impact on aesthetic medicine really extends far beyond his Austin practice, I'd say. From his early days as chief resident at St. Louis University to his international training in Taiwan and Belgium, Dr. Franco has really consistently pursued excellence in plastic surgery. Today, he really leads one of Texas' most innovative practices at Austin Plastic Surgeon, which has grown exponentially under his vision. And he's also known uh, as the BBL King for his groundbreaking approach to body contouring. And Dr. Franco combines surgical expertise with a commitment to comprehensive patient care, including pioneering weight management programs, which really brings us to today's webinar. He's really been one of the first plastic surgeons, I believe, to establish a comprehensive medical weight loss program. And he's now transformed how many patients? Over 2,000, 3,000?
We see almost 2,000 a month in the office, and
Wow.
so it's been super interesting, super exciting. And honestly, I was patient number one of the process, and so I started it some of the weight loss journey myself about almost 2 years ago now, and I'm down about 90 pounds, and so trying to hold strong. And so a lot of what I'll talk about tonight, I've lived and integrated because it's things that's been personal to me.
Yeah, that's what I really love. Like you really practice what you preach. Like you've gone through the journey yourself, and now you also train other physicians, right, nationwide, through Scaling Skinny, which is really a premier weight loss training program.
Exactly, because it's really trying to I see wellness as kind of this new frontier in aesthetic medicine. I think in the past we've talked about wellness, regenerative medicine, but I think finally technology in terms of both regenerative medicine and the basic science of this, also in the technology from devices. I mean, I think we've had things uh, with the concept of shape scale, but never with the accessibility, never the ability to have in our office. And let's be honest, it's something that's cost affordable for practices and offices to actually have in their office. And so, we've seen this just become much more user friendly. And I think with the integration of apps and phones and so forth, it's made it so much easier for practices and patients.
Awesome. Well, why don't we get started with the session? I know you have a little presentation to share with our audience today, so yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll jump into it. We call it data-driven aesthetics, transform your practice. And I'm going to start with a little background and then we'll go through it. Happy to answer a bunch of questions along the way. If there's really something super pressing or a slide you really want me to spend some time on, jump in. I think
Hmm.
our team's monitoring the chat, and so happy to
Yep.
answer all of those. If not, we'll try and get to the end so we get through this. I know your guys' time is precious, so we'll try to keep this under an hour and be efficient, but also hopefully give you a few nuggets to take home. So hopefully this is Martin and I are bringing stuff that's even more than just talking about shape scale, but kind of overall making your practice a little bit more efficient overall. Now, these are my
Amazing.
disclosures, just uh, uh, just to be upfront. One of the things that I talk about and I think is super important is, especially right now with the way things have changed. When I started this personally 2 years ago, if you were a practice or an office and you were just offering the weight loss medications, that was enough. I mean, the line was out your door. People were trying to come in, and there was no shortage of patients just because it was so new, so few people had it. Now, just like a toxin or anything else, like you really have to have a unique value proposition. What are you doing that's helping them? Because you're going to get into this competition with these online pharmacies. There's some of the FDA changes that are in a really strong limbo right now. And so, when we have people that come to us and say, hey, should we, even start a wellness program if we haven't, is it still worth it? The other thing is patients, practices that are in it, really talking about, are you a weight loss prescription or are you a weight loss program? Because I have a lot of people say like, hey, we started a weight loss program. And then when I ask them what they do, they're like, oh, we prescribe GLP, and that's the only thing you do, which I definitely think it's a phenomenal drug and super interesting, but I really think there's so much more. It was I was at a couple of different conferences this past weekend, and one was super interesting. With a group of people from all over the country that really kind of specialize in this, and one of them was a director of an obesity center at one of these national universities, and so pretty interesting because they've been involved in it from an insurance standpoint, and so had a little bit more access to some of these, and really taken the stepwise approach in terms of treating this. But they see it. This isn't going away, and the idea of like having to continue to evolve with this. And I think most of us think that we're only scratching the surface of this. And so and honestly, a lot of really exciting stuff coming out in 2025 and probably early part of 2025, which is interesting. And I'll get to a few previews, so I won't just tease you all night long about it. Weight loss revolution, something that I've been super passionate about. But the thing is, it's not just me. If you think about how many people this affects, there's very few things in the aesthetic industry that affects, this many people. And one of the things that we actually talked about this past weekend is, most of the time we talk about men in the aesthetic industry, and anyone that's been in it long enough knows that every 5 or 6 years there's articles and it's men's the new frontier, men is the new wave, and at some point maybe, but if you really look at it, it's been about 8% for the last like 20 years. It really hasn't changed that much. But weight is something that really speaks to everybody, and I think there's a lot of opportunities there. You also, I think at some point here in the very near future, you're going to start to see a lot of new people, and that was what one of the meetings was specifically about, new people entering the aesthetic space. And I think it's going to be really challenging, and really didn't think about it in this way until recently, is if you think about, you have these new people who are entering the aesthetic space, much different than someone that's gotten Botox for the last, 10, 12 years, and now has these new medications or new skin tightening treatments or new muscle building. Some of those concepts are so foreign. How are you going to speak to somebody who's really new and maybe a little nervous, maybe a little skeptical of some of these treatments about the real progress they're having? And so I think it's going to be some unique opportunities, some phenomenal opportunities for us, but also some unique challenges. And we've developed this concept called magnet leads, but it's what's a low barrier to entry that resonates with a lot of people. And I think weight is that. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about is this exemplification of aesthetics, because you have this weight loss revolution going on, but what is this doing to the aesthetic industry? And I think, one, you have this unique population that we already alluded to. You have these younger patients coming into your office. You have new patients coming into your office that are aesthetic naive. You also have these evolving needs. We've never seen in this kind of number this amount of young patients coming through that are having muscle issues, weight loss issues, skin laxity, targeted volume needs in their 20s, 30s, 40s. I don't know about some of the providers that are on and listening, but I struggle with, what do I do with a 27-year-old that lost 60 pounds and has a really significant amount of loose skin? Do you offer them a face and neck lift? Do you do some skin tightening, some filler, some biostimulants, and say, hey, come back in 20 years and we'll do a facelift? And so I think there's some really unique challenges. It's super exciting, and but on all of us, those of you that are giving up your night to listen to this, that really need to really work through some of this. And of course, men, I think that's going to be a big driver if we take the opportunity to speak to them. You'll see this, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but it's really hard to get men into the office. Once they make the decision to come to your office, and most of them, any of the surgeons on here know that they would do the surgery the same day if they could. It's just the challenge of getting them in there, and really, you'd have to really mess it up for them to leave your practice. Because once they find a spot, they want to do everything there because it's easy, it's convenient, it's familiar. I think technology and AI has really been interesting crossroads of this. I mean, if there's two topics that are hot right now, and probably the most impactful, it's the technology and AI, and the weight loss. And when you have an opportunity like this for some of these to merger, in terms of things, I think there's some real unique opportunities there. And like I mentioned at the beginning, some of the ideas that ShapeScale has aren't necessarily new overall, but new that they're so easy to use, so beneficial to the patients. You have a device that you can actually fit in an exam room that doesn't take an entire exam room up, that's portable if you want to go to events. I think it's the way that the ease and use of it. So we'll get into it a little bit obviously I'm super excited about because we have three in our office, but we take them to events all the time because it gives something that they're super impactful and meaningful to people that are interested about exploring some of these things. I always like to leave people with a few nuggets, even if you said, hey, I really don't want to do anything with weight loss. I don't want to do anything with ShapeScale. I'm just, was flipping through and somehow accidentally clicked on the Zoom. That's cool. But if you did, still want to give you a take home for the night for at least clicking on the link stuff. In our website, and most of you guys have been like this, you feel like by the time you finish your website, you're already updating your website because it's already out of date. For us, our two most visited pages are Ozempic Face and Ozempic Butt. Ozempic Face, when we updated that page in March or April, I think April, somewhere in there, we had almost 250,000 impressions in the first 3 days that it was up. So the amount of people that are searching for this, we recently updated our Ozempic butt page and, had 70,000 impressions in the first day or two that page was live. And so just shows you how many people are searching for these things. And so, finding ways to speak to them, finding ways to really address their needs. Most of the aesthetic providers in here are used to treating those things, but speaking in a way that really resonates or talks to them and helps guide them through that journey, especially if they're new to aesthetics. So you're going to hear a common theme tonight, and we'll keep going through it. But definitely, if you have one take home from an overall thing, that's one thing I would tell you to really think about is, have you optimized your website, your social media? Are you using these things to speak to it? I tell you solely from a marketing social media. That's one of the things that ShapeScale is really cool about. And I'll show you some of their images, and they're definitely happy to share some of those with you if you like. But there's some really cool stuff that are pretty stunning from a social media to be eye-catching because you got this TikTokification of marketing where you only got a split second to get their interest. But there are people searching terms, which has been great because some of the social media algorithms have changed from an interest based to a time based and from a time based to an interest based. So, even if you don't have a massive following, you still have opportunities to grow your following or, to have people follow you over time because it's become the new website and people actually search for things on your social media. So making sure that you're really doing a good job with your captions. It's definitely an evolving landscape, but the idea that this is going away, just doesn't seem realistic to me with, almost $1 billion being spent on advertising. It's no wonder that patients are searching for these terms. Patients are looking for these. I mean, they're being targeted in terms of these medications. But even more than that, it's just evolving. If you really look at it, the indications for these medications is growing exponentially. You see the cardiologists, you see some of these from an addictive perspective and so forth. So I think even people who aren't necessarily maybe trying to lose weight, you're going to see some of the sequela of these medications of the volume loss, skin laxity, muscle enhancement. It was one of the big topics this past week. And is, how do we help these patients, especially if they're going to be someone who's going to be on these medications long term to really set into a good fitness category and making sure that we're helping guide them. And there's definitely other ways to measure this, but for a lot of us is, how can we do this in a super efficient way that makes sense in our office? Also makes sense for patients because if they're not, in a BMI of 40 in a university system, I mean, these measurements also have to be practical for them as well as resources are precious for most of us in terms of that and time. It needs to be something that they can do, come in, have their consultation or their monthly visit, quarterly, however you're doing it, and having real-time updates that are easy to follow and things that they can actually track and tangible to them. If you're the practice and you're doing weight loss, I do think you really have to find ways to resonate with patients that are beyond this. Because I think just like for anyone who does any toxins, fillers, the race to the bottom of just being the cheapest provider of weight loss medication, I think is going to be challenging. And you're going to get into a real battle. If you look at Hims and Hers, they're offering, this is one of their ads recently that's offering $99 medications, and absolutely great that they're offering it to military veterans, teachers, nurses. But again, I think, if you're not a massive corporation, that's going to really, really make your margins tight, and so I think that becomes a struggle. If you've already seen Eli Lilly is already working on some direct to consumer. They've already hired some practitioners and you can actually get decreased cost for some of these things. So a lot of stuff coming, but on the flip side, there's some really exciting stuff. There's, I had 80 on this slide. one of the speakers this past weekend argued that there's 127 in human testing right now. So it just shows you the amount of medications in process right now. There's some orals, some injectables, some single treatments, some new hormones. Some are focused more on preserving muscle, some to increase the length of it. Injections that would be single months, some orals that would be as effective of these, and then some injections that are actually going to be equivalent in weight loss to bariatric surgery. So pretty amazing, because I think we're going to have such a variety of medications and options that, I mean, our ability to tailor some of this is going to be massive. But if you think about that, now you can do a shot or a pill that's as effective as bariatric surgery, we're going to have a ton of sequela from a skin laxity, volume replacement, so forth, muscle protection that we're going to have to really, focus on over the next 5 to 10 years. And to the point that we've kind of alluded to a little bit is, I'm definitely not saying that every aesthetic provider needs to be a weight loss clinic. And I honestly think you really need to decide right now whether that's something you're even interested in, if that's a spot that you want to be. But I do think that, there's a lot of patients out there with these needs. And so speaking to them in a way that really matters and resonates, I think is super helpful. And making sure that your team understands that. And a little bit later, I'll get to a uh basic, like, a treatment plan that we had made. And the thing about it is it helped our staff as much as it helped our patients kind of really organize these talk tracks and thinking about this. And so we'll talk about how we've done that as well. I think this is interesting, when we talk about why we need to really be thoughtful about how we're speaking to patients. Half of the patients that are on Ozempic or Wegovy are new to practices. And on some of these ad boards I've been on recently, a lot of providers and even some of the industry that are involved in this have seen that as well, that it's you've had this wellness wallet, you've had these new people into this weight loss, but most of them are aesthetic naive. And so, if half these people at least are aesthetic naive, it's definitely going to take some more tangibles to be able to speak to them and help them along the journey. Because, even in our personal office, a lot of patients that come in, and because either they've seen my journey or they've had friends that were initially part of our aesthetic practice, and they've had such success because most of us know somebody that would benefit from these medications. And so the ability to be able to be like, oh, hey, here I'm coming. And then most of our patients will come in, and if they're aesthetic naive, will be like, oh, no, because we do like to talk like, hey, there's a ton of great benefits, but here's some of the changes you're going to see over the next 6 to 9 months, especially if there's somebody that's losing over 30 pounds, and so if you're at that spot and they're like, okay, I hear you, but I'm just here for weight loss. I'm not really into that foo-foo stuff. I'm not worried about that's not my thing. It's like, okay, but you'd be surprised as they go along. They get some success. They feel really good about this. But you got to be able to speak to them in a very positive way about it. What's interesting is that for patients that do come to offices, 70% of them come back for other services, but it's a variety of services. And I think this is going to change the further out that you follow people into things. And, some of the big pushes, especially from some of the bigger aesthetic industry partners out there, is going to be in terms of muscles, but you also see it from supplements, hormones, some different things like that. And the way that you're going to see this is there's going to be a really, really big push on kind of the functional aspect of this, because if people are really moving this from, just a pure weight loss to like an overall health and fitness, that's going to be a strong component of this. Just want to give you an idea of what it's done for our practice. And you can see, some of the numbers here, in March of 2024, and I got to update that because we've surpassed that this month, or this month in
Sorry, sorry to
October.
interrupt, Dr. Franco, because I don't think you're sharing your screen yet.
Oh, can you not see my screen?
I don't think so.
No, no, he is. I mean,
Oh,
I
he
can see
is?
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm sorry. My bad. That's on me then.
Awesome. So
Oh, yeah, there it
what
is.
I'm saying is just the no, great. I want to make sure everybody can see this, because there are some good slide stuff here, so hopefully helpful. But I do think that the amount of patients coming into the office, and with just foot traffic coming in, it's just so helpful because now you can speak to them and all the different things that are super helpful for that process. And for us, as our number of patients have gone up, so has our non-surgical revenue. But I'll tell you, it's been hard. And when you follow this, and when I have other kind of conversations with people, it's a matter of time. And I think there is a couple things, and we can talk about at the end about stuff that we've done in terms of drip campaigns, CRMs, other stuff, and I think ways to kind of communicate and help with some of that. I do think that we're at this kind of pivotal point of plastic surgery. And so, you have all these patients that are maybe new to the space, that they're growing in this field, so you have this wellness wave that is really kind of swept into the aesthetic industry, with weight loss being the number one, but peptides has been a huge one. If you see, there's some FDA changes that have recently come about some of the peptides being able to come back onto the market. There's going to be some more updates about that here in early December. So I think that's super exciting. Hormones have definitely had a regenerative. You see some of the regenerative medicine, which has been a topic for a long time, but you actually have ideas now and ways to help that. So this personalized medicine has gotten more realistic. Obviously, the skin laxity, the volume loss, the muscle changes. And then now that we have this tech and AI that can really help guide people along that process. Again, a unique population, but if you think about it, if you have this many young patients coming into your office, I mean, now you have patients that are yours for the next 40, 50, 60 years, and so I think the longevity there, to really help them is fabulous. And I think there's ways to really be a consistent cornerstone for them. One of the hottest topics at some of these recent meetings has really been, muscle matters. And you've seen a lot of this in the news. There's actually been a few articles that have come out very, very recently talking about some of this muscle loss and the effects that it has on skeletal muscle, and whether it's sarcopenia and actually the muscle strength or the muscle volume, but from some of these things. But I think something that we're just going to have to be on top of and really be about. The other interesting thing is patients have access to a lot of this because they're seeing this in the news. So it's been pretty surprising how many questions we actually get about some of these things preemptively from patients. And, it can be a topic that can be hard to explain if you don't have anything to really kind of help guide them through there. And so, sometimes people think that they're losing this weight, because of these medications. And if you actually look at the numbers of this, and even talking from some of these medical doctors and medical teams that have been in the obesity arena, even pre-GLP, it's not new to them. And so, whether patients have bariatric surgery, have these things, they've been in that 25 to 35, and it's a little bit hard of how you measure this. And so, most of us don't have, all sorts of different instruments to measure this, or the time to do MRIs for people, or the cost to do an MRI and actually, measure the cross section of everybody's thighs and arms and those type of things. But there are a lot of really good ways to do this that make sense. But we've never seen this many patients have these many weight loss in before. So that's why it's interesting. So again, come back to why does it matter that people are losing muscle? But because if you're in the aesthetic industry and you're being a part of this, whether you're offering the drugs or not, or whether you're a weight loss clinic or not, these are issues that your patients are going to have. And it's like, so these are super effective. You're going to have people on this. They're going to have a concern, for these muscle treatments. So what are we going to do about it? How are we going to help them along the issue? And we've developed something that we call the muscle mass movement in our office, because it gives us a real legitimate something to talk about it. So, they have the weight loss. We're going to at least talk about, hey, here's some of the changes you're going to see, which, is honestly part of your informed consent. You're part of this. Here's what you should be doing, making sure that they know they're like, we're more than just a prescription. We're a program, and we're going to help guide you. And so even if you're not ready for this, we're going to help you and give you some options. Some of that may be muscle, some of it may just be education, some of it may be nutrition, some of it may down the road actually be some skin tightening and other treatments. I've personally done a lot of the treatments myself, and some of it has been great. And this is where one of the things that we've recently implemented is actually doing some of these scans, and we used to make it optional and let people come in. One of the things that we've recently changed in our practice, so maybe if Martin's nice enough to invite me back in early 2025, I'll give you an update. But the idea now is that people don't get a choice. When they come in for their initial consultation, it's part of the process. We scan everybody, and this way we can really track and do everything really, really well for them. Because I think when you're just measuring weight, it's really hard. And it's fine if somebody has a really high BMI, but in our experience, that hasn't been the majority of the patients coming in our office. I honestly think it's going to be less of the patients coming into the aesthetic office. More of those are going to be treated by their internal medicine. I think we're going to see a lot of patients that are, maybe 33 to 28 BMI stuff that are just trying to get, right off that track. And I think they're going to have to need a bigger kind of holistic. And I think this is really going to help us guide where their treatment plan comes, especially with so many new things coming to the market and a lot of options for them. It's going to let us make decisions on real data. So for me, then that's where a lot of the stuff came. I there's my picture of me 9 months pregnant, and then I lost about 90 pounds and have made some progress. And so, when I first started this, I didn't care about any of the things that I'm talking about. All I wanted to do was lose weight. But as I started to make some progress, all those things became super relevant because you're like, hey, I'm getting to a better spot. I feel better. I'm buying new clothes, so now I do want to build some muscle. I do want to, make sure all my labs are in a good spot. I do want to, make some tweaks. And they had recommended, some different hormones, some different things, and we can do that. And so all that stuff kind of changed for me as I went along the journey. So even if you're just starting this and you've seen a little bit of pushback, people aren't interested, hang in there, because the more you can educate them, over time, you're going to see people slowly moving along that, because they're going to get so much positive reinforcement about how they're feeling, how they're doing in terms of things. This is one of our patients, and so him and his wife started the weight loss journey at our practice. You can see how much weight he lost, and uh, even when he lost all this weight, obviously he had some surgery and some other things, but he transformed, and he obviously was a fit guy to begin with, but even took it to the next level and got super excited about this, and has gotten into peptides. His fitness has increased even more, but has now done surgeries, is part of the weight loss, part of the peptides, part of a lot of different things. And so for a lot of them, it has become so much more than just weight loss. It's like, hey, this is a second chance. Like, I'm super excited. Here's some things I can do, and then just really trying to maximize this for them to get them to a great spot. But I think some of those things are hard to do, abstractly, especially if somebody's not already into some of these fitness journey stuff. And for a lot of people, they may have been into it 10 or 15 years ago, before kids, college, work, whatever life happened that got us off of it. A lot has changed over the last 15, 20 years. You know, uh, Kind of diving into actual tangibles about how we do it, and what we do, and how to implement this. Because I know a lot of you are saying, like, okay, those ideas are great, but what do you actually do? We actually developed a program called Biohacking Beyond Beauty at our practice. And like I said, it starts from one end and kind of works throughout. But the initial stuff that we do is body composition. And so, because we've been doing this for a while, we've done a couple of things now. Anyone that comes in automatically gets a body composition. People can buy a package. So let's say they just want to come in and get more every 2 weeks, or once a month, they can do that. If not, then we do it every third visit. So we can do it just from a flow. For us, it's a little hard to scan every single person that comes in every day, just from the amount of people coming through our office. Maybe Martin will talk us into, again, a second one for our big office, but we'll see. But I do think it's nice to track them, and then for them to be able to see progress, and then doing some things about health. There's also some phenotyping coming out, and then even some personalized custom labs that you can create for people, so that you can white label and help them. So when you get those data, those things, you can actually change for it. But I think taking a step back, if you have this, is what are you doing as a holistic program, and how can you create something that's really unique to your practice? And I think that's huge. And the idea is that you want to be able to speak to them in a way that resonates. There was a few little changes that we made that really helped move the needle in terms of moving people along the journey. And so, for me, if you're talking about facial fillers, other stuff, saying, hey, we need to do some fillers to this person. I had a full face. Last thing I want to do is somebody tell me that I need to fill my face. Also, too, some of these patients, once they get further along their journey, they get discouraged because they don't see, the number on the scale moving like they should. But, if you have them in a good spot, and you're doing some peptides, maybe some hormone treatments, doing some muscle building, some E-stim, they may not be moving the scale, but their overall body composition may be training pretty dramatically. And if you're not measuring or have any way to track that, you've made so much good progress and you have no way to get any credit and show for that. And unfortunately, and we all know this. I mean, you have friends or you've been on different things and you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I haven't made any progress. And you go to a family reunion after 6, 9 months and they're like, oh damn, Martin, you look great. And it's like, oh, we don't give ourselves enough credit because we see it every day. And I think, it's amazing how many people are surprised when they're like, oh, I've actually gained, this much size on my shoulders. And they're like, I've really been working on it and I didn't think I made any progress. But, from the actual measurements, it's like, oh, wow, this is really great. Or, hey, my weight hasn't changed, but my visceral fat has actually decreased pretty significantly. And we all know from a health benefit, from an appearance benefit, those are great. And those are some of the updates not too long ago that ShapeScale had made that I think has been really, really incredible in terms of speaking with patients, because I think most of them know that the visceral fat is something that's challenging. And so when they can get a shift, even if their weight doesn't move that much, but their, muscle mass area increases, their visceral fat decreases, they see that as a big win and they actually feel very positive about that. Also, pretty interesting and something that we're trying to look at is for some of our tummy tuck patients, whether we can measure that when we're getting them down or we're planning a surgery and actually being able to see some of that so we can give them a realistic idea of how much we can tighten those muscles. Also makes sense for them in terms of, hey, here's where your visceral fat is. Imagine if you lost a little bit of this, that won't be in the way. And now again, it's something tangible for them because sometimes hard for them to understand when they're, not in the medical field and haven't done all the anatomy and so forth. This is something, and if you guys want to take a screenshot or take a picture of it, you're welcome to. This is a custom treatment plan that we created at our office. We did this through Canva, so you guys could do this for yourself, and maybe we'll work with ShapeScale at some point to do something for them to help you guys with. But the idea is, when we did it, it was to walk patients through this and be like, hey, here's our Ozempic phase prevention and treatment plan. And we actually give it to them at the very first visit, again, at 3 months when they hit their goal and along the journey. So that way it can be like, hey, here's the things that you're going to see, and here's when you should treat them. Here's the downtime. And it's been great for patients, been great for our coordinators involved with people, but honestly has been absolutely incredible for our team overall, especially the call center, the front desk, because it gave them a real like roadmap. This is what we do in our office. And I'm sure people on the call now are like, they've had where they're listening to calls at the end of the day, whatever system you use, and people are like, oh, we don't offer Ozempic, we don't offer this. And it's like, oh, but you don't, but you offer all the treatments that they're actually asking for when they're asking for Ozempic face or Ozempic body. And so I think it's really helped the team hone in. Honestly, just building this out made me think about, okay, what do we offer that's really valuable for patients and how can we tie this in? So you can imagine doing the ShapeScale, being like, okay, here's where we're at. Here's our treatment plan with our weight loss. Here's the things you're going to see, 30% lose muscle, here's where you're at now. Here's your visceral fat and how you could really build something out really nice for them. And again, a lot of them will be like, not interested in that, right now. And you're like, okay, but, put it away. Most of us have electronic EMR, so it's not, do anything to save that. And then you can circle back over the next couple of months. And then, how many of us wish that we had a great image or these things, when they've completed their journey 6, 9 months later, and you're like, shoot, I didn't take any pictures or I didn't measure that visceral fat and how much they've changed. Getting into ShapeScale for people that aren't familiar with it, it actually folds down and it's super easy if you have to move it or you want to get it out of the way. If you're using a room, for any of my colleagues in New York, Beverly Hills, other places where, yeah, I know one 5 by 5 square foot room is pretty, priceless real estate stuff. Absolutely amazing how small it is. The other really cool thing is you can see here is, I hate clutter in the rooms. I hate, a ton of stuff in the halls. And so to their kudos, I mean, it actually looks super slick and easy in the room stuff. And even in one of the rooms that we do some of our labs and other stuff, people just ask, what is that? Can I do it? Which is really kind of cool. But I think the bigger thing is being able to have this evolution of like patient education and being able to explain stuff to them. And I'm going to go into a video here so you guys can see here exactly how it works. And this is in somebody's house, which I think is some things coming, but we have it in our office for people to see. It starts at the bottom, rotates around. This is pretty real time. It doesn't take much longer than this to really scan somebody and get get your images. I use myself as a model, so don't worry about that, you know. And then it'll go all the way up, and this is what gets you such a great image for all of this in terms of stuff, but pretty quick. And then, you know, pretty quick you can get the data up in your screen and then just see everything. And so not a long test, because I know that a lot of people worry about we're going to do something that's going to slow down our office flow, and we just have not seen that. This is some of the ideas, and you can see, you know, I know DEXA scan is another thing that people talk about, but this is almost as accurate as DEXA scan, but definitely a lot more things. And honestly, when we were bringing this on, we looked at a couple other devices. You know, some of the things that really stood out to us is the images. I think for us, if you don't have some image to be able to speak to people, like just looking at a report, and I know they print out the PDF reports and other things that you can do, which is fine for us from a chart and other standpoint. But when I'm sitting with a patient, if I don't have an image or something to show them, it's really dry and really hard to be like, look at these number changes across a sheet, you know, and your progress stuff. But when they can do it and then it's tied on the bar graph to those images, that is super helpful. And we do a lot of virtuals for the middle visits in between. And again, you can, you know, pull those back up to where they're at and super easy in their chart. And, you know, we talked about visceral fat, which I think was great. BMI is one, but I think that's such a just small thing. And maybe Martin will jump in a little bit because they actually have a couple
Yeah.
really cool different options, because if you want to buy it, great. If you're like, hey, you know, that's just a little bit for us, there's some other options as well.
Yeah, like Dr. Franco already mentioned, it's really the combination that you get with ShapeScale, right? Of a photorealistic full color 3D image of your patient, and then we pair that with all the different measurements from overall body composition, like we talked about, body fat, lean mass, and then visceral fat, but then also the regional measurements, and that's of course really helpful when it comes to, you know, targeted either training or aesthetic treatments, because now you can really assess the volume loss or gain after a treatment. And that can be, of course, quite insightful in terms of aesthetics. And then the 3D heat map view, which you can see here on the right-hand side in the middle of the screen, that really gives you like almost like an instant view of, you know, body shape progress, because now you can instantly understand, okay, this person right there lost around her abdomen, and then she made some targeted gains around her hips and hamstrings. And yeah, that's really awesome for the patient themselves, because now they don't even have to dive through all the numbers. They can instantly understand what's going on.
And super cool because you can really kind of tailor to whatever that patient has, different practices. I know we all kind of focus on different things, and it's been interesting even between our providers, kind of which of some of these they've kind of leaned more into another, and we all kind of, I think even in our practice where we have several providers, we all kind of get a bias of different patients for us. And so one of our providers has a lot of kind of fitness people, and you know, measuring the volume stuff is really high. Someone who it does a lot more like mommy makers, other stuff. They're always talking about visceral fat and how they can get that tummy down and things. So super interesting how you can kind of tailor this and really look at the things that matter. The other kind of cool thing is you know, the score it gives you, and I didn't think that people would hold on to it as much as they do, but you know what percentage you are for your weight in terms of your overall health score, and so that was super interesting.
Yeah, and one final thing maybe worth mentioning, we now time is money, right? And that's why we really try to make it as easy as possible. So it does have facial recognition. So when your patient comes back in, all they really have to do is step on the device and it will automatically take a scan and then send their data to their account. So really minimizing the time it takes for you and your staff to operate our machine.
Martin, and can you explain to people, because I think this has been super exciting and we've used it a couple times for events, but one of the recent updates, and I say recent kind of loosely, I think you guys did this a couple months ago, but you know, we're, you know, if you want to take this to an event, like we've done a couple events with like fitness gyms or other type of places, and you want to scan a lot of people really, really quickly, that you guys have updated that to make that super easy and streamlined. So such a great kind of eye catcher, and something in terms of generating kind of new buzz and leads of at an event that's super efficient.
Yeah, we had some customers, you know, take it even like to events like a marathon. They set it up there at a booth to, you know, get people scanned, a lot of them, and that can really help to generate a lot of leads, because as you pointed out earlier, right, it looks like a really cool device, and definitely, gets you some eyeballs, and it can get you quite a bit of attention. And what we've recently rolled out is what we call the self-serve mode, and that really allows prospects to simply scan a QR code with their phone, and that will open up a web page. All they have to do is type in their email address, and then they can take a scan without having to download any software. And then they will receive an email that basically prompts them to download the app and then basically to set up an account. And that can be like the first stage for you then to interact with a prospect with, okay, here's your 3D body scan. This is where you're at. This is what we can do at our practice, if you sign up for XYZ service or treatment. That's really the idea behind it. And it really makes it quick and easy to, onboard a lot of new guest users on your platform.
It's been that's what we've used it. We've done a couple basic kind of events with some local gyms, and that has been super well received. And the nice thing about being able to get through, because the last thing you want to do is people to be turned off because they're waiting too long. But interesting because having enough people that are super excited so that they do, and then how many people start then are asking about other things, and so obviously toxin fillers and so forth. But then obviously them just even being engaged with your office, I think is huge for this. So a lot of opportunities, super exciting. And we'll circle back to some of this during the Q&A, but so just kind of want to summarize a few things, so the value in weight loss, I think just having the medication, if that's something is going to be really challenging, I do think that the wellness wave is the future expansion of the aesthetic arena. I think there's this vision that it's just going to continue to grow. I think it's going to be something that the patients are asking for. I think skin laxity is going to be a huge issue. I think muscle building is going to be something, because you're going to see a lot of our industry partners really pushing and talking about that. And actually, there's a couple of companies that are going to start spending a lot of marketing money on muscle and some of their device stuff things. So I think practices that can really speak and show this, I think it's going to resonate really, really well. I also do think that there's, on all of us, I think there's going to be a lot of new problems. I think it's on us to create solutions and help guide them through this journey, because I think you're going to have so many new people in the aesthetic industry that are going to want to go to someone that can help explain this and guide them. Because imagine if they have two friends, and someone's like, oh, I've started this, I've been doing some muscle things, I think it's helping, I don't know. And someone else is like, hey, I started my medication, but I also got this scan, I have this image, this is my picture here of me, and this is where the progress I've made. I mean, where do you think that friend's going to go? And it's something that's super easy, and then something that people are excited about because they can share. And that's some of the cool things about the app on their own phone, is they can actually pull up these images at any point. And I think anything that's shareable or people can talk about, I think is super, super interesting. I do think the next kind of current and future trends of this are figuring out how to do some skin laxity, how to treat muscle in a very meaningful way. I think volume loss is going to be something that's hard, with such young patients and people being on this long term. That's where I also think the muscle is going to be an issue if patients aren't being really good about protein intake, balancing some of these things, especially if people are on these medications. And one of the interesting topics from one of the speakers this past weekend was just how they really foresee that people are going to be on this drug for the rest of their life, especially with some of the other benefits and things coming out. I do think there's a second wave of aesthetics, boom coming as more and more people are on this. And I think, people that can speak to it are going to be priceless in terms of helping with all of that. So, TBD, and just want to be ahead of that wave when it comes, that you already, are speaking to those patients. And you can see from the search terms, people are looking for solutions, just got to be the one kind of helping them along that process. So, in conclusion, I think there's a lot of opportunities. I do think there's some challenges. I think we're in uncharted territory, and some of these new technology are helping, kind of guide the way and really help us make meaningful decisions on some of these things, because it's still a learning curve for everybody. But the more data points and from some of these that you can track, I think the more interactions, I think the more points we're going to have. So such a exciting time for me, and hopefully for all of you guys. So appreciate you guys taking the time, and that's my little grumpy nugget at home tonight. So happy to answer any questions or answer anything that I can do for you all.
All right,
Thank you.
let's get into Thank you so much. Yeah, let's get into the questions then. So first question is, how does ShapeScale fit into your weight loss programs? Can you walk us through your client journey and explain how often you scan your patients?
Yeah, this has been a little bit of a evolution for us for sure. I think we've had ShapeScale now for almost 6 months or so, something I want to say something like that. And so we had a lot of patients on the weight loss medication prior to it. And I definitely, in all kind of transparency, when we first started, we were probably truly just a prescription program, and that's all we did, but really have seen the need for it. And that's why I was super excited about it when I first got introduced to it. So we have a little bit of a mixed bag. So if somebody who's been in it for a little while, we will introduce it to them slowly over time. Definitely, if they're doing any of our peptides, hormones, those type of things, then it's a must for us, so that we can track their real progress. Recently, we started that any new weight loss or wellness patient to the program automatically gets scanned, and then we scan them every third visit. Again, just from a sheer number of patients that we see, because we see about 2,000 weight loss patients a month. It's a little hard for us to scan every single person every single time they come into the office, just from a sheer number. So we do every third time, we do every new consult, and then track so we can have those conversations with them. Hopefully that helps.
Amazing. And then next question, do you include your scans in your weight loss programs, or do you have a pay-per scan model as well?
Uh,
So are the scans included in the weight loss programs fully, or do you also offer it for
so
people to just pay as they go?
So we do a few different things with it. So one, if you're part of the weight loss program, then we include it at those visits. If people want additional visits, then like the every third visit, they can buy a package of extra shape scales for it. We've definitely it's interesting. We've actually had people that have bought extra ones and just brought friends to get scanned, which for us, we don't mind because it's new people being entered. It gives us a chance to have a conversation with them. So we've done a little bit of both. The other kind of cool thing that we've recently added to is to some of our memberships. So some of the people that are on like our skin fit memberships for like micro knee and other things, it's just an added benefit for them. And again, it's another way that's very low cost for us, right? At this point, once we have the devices there, but gets them from our wellness providers, because when they do the shape scale, they do it with one of the wellness providers so they can go over their results with them. But just a nice added benefit to the membership. So that was something else that we added recently, was making it part of most of our membership packages
Amazing.
outside of conference.
Um, and do you mind sharing the prices for the packages that you guys have, the paper scan packages?
Yeah, so we'll do a couple things. So if they do just a single scan, it's $50. If they do, I'm gonna probably misquote this, but $50 for a single scan. I think they can buy something like 5 scans for like $100. So something in that range. And I think we have another package for like 10 scans. And so the more they buy, the cheaper it gets. We don't really try and use the shape scale to generate money necessarily, or a ton of revenue from the actual scan. For us, the benefit is sitting down and talking with them like, here's your results, here's the treatment plan that you need.
Right. And then the next question I think is going to be for Martin. Can you talk a bit about the managed accounts feature and how a practice can control what's being shared with the patient and how it can be shared?
So yeah, that's a new feature that we had just rolled out, I believe, just about 2 months ago, and that basically gives all business users the ability to directly create a client account from within their client portal. And that way, your clients are not required to download the app and to set up an account. You can do it on their behalf. And that really allows you to streamline client onboarding. It really makes it easy. You don't have
Mhm.
to like wait for any interaction of your clients. And at that point, you can still have the choice. Okay, do I want to give all my clients or that particular client access to the app, and then they can still receive an invite and they can download the app and then access all their data. Or alternatively, you can also choose to withhold that information because maybe you want to, go more through a controlled approach, like by just going over certain aspects of, the scans and what it provides instead of like giving them free access to everything.
Mhm.
And of course, you can always export also report as a PDF. There we give you the ability to add notes. You can also print it out and then annotate it with pen and paper. That's also an option. But I think most clinics that use a ShapeScale, they really use an iPad to go over results when the client is on site.
Yeah. That's exactly what we do. We use it on the iPad, show it to them right then and there, and discuss with it. It is nice to be able to download and just attach that report though to their chart, so we have it to reference if we need to.
Amazing. And then next question, do you also use ShapeScale with your surgical patients, or is it mostly just with the weight loss patients?
It's mostly been the weight loss patients, but it's something that we've been exploring in terms of this because we've really been trying to kind of help people along, especially with the peptides and the functional stuff. So we want to start trying to look at how we can incorporate ShapeScale like at patients pre-ops and then at their post-op and then getting them on some of these e-stems to kind of get them back. Because the question for us is, now with some of these e-stems, these peptide stuff, can we actually shorten people's recovery? Can we help them get back to a baseline? And so, one of the things that we're actually trying to look at is, can we measure them at the pre-op with ShapeScale? And then, if we implement some of these things like the e-stems, the peptide stuff, can we get them back to that baseline, sooner? And I'm not talking about like your 45-minute breast dog, but I'm talking about these mommy makeovers that went through 7.5 hour surgery, tummy tuck, mastopexy og stuff. So it's actually something that me and a couple of friends have actually been talking, and we're actually trying to do a few little trials to create a pilot study for that. So great question and something we're actively trying to launch.
Well, definitely keep us posted on that. And then the final question that I see here is which you touched upon some of the features that you like, but which features have you found to be the most useful when it comes to your weight loss programs?
Ooh, which features the most?
And which ShapeScale features, which metrics?
Personally, I don't know that there's one that I would say that is the most, because I think it really just depends on the patient, kind of where they are in the journey. I think the overall body composition, the visceral fat, those type of things early on are most important. I think once people are in a like maintenance phase and we're doing this and their weight's not changing, the things that we've seen is being able to like measure kind of the progress in terms of like measuring their different muscle mass at these different spots, I think has been great. I think being able to see their overall like health score, I didn't really think that the patients would hold on to that number so adamantly, but they do. And it really means a lot to them. So I think it really just depends where they are in that journey, which is kind of cool because you have options anywhere they're at in the journey. And if you're bringing this in now, you've already had a program, you probably have the full spectrum from people on maintenance to people just starting to, everywhere in between. And the other nice thing that I always tell people to keep in mind is, again, even if you're not doing these medications or don't have a weight loss here, right? A lot of your patients, because even if you're doing just treating the Ozempic face and butt and body, of the weight loss stuff, if you're in aesthetic industry, there's a good chance that the majority of your patients are getting these meds somewhere, and so there's no reason, if they're getting it from, even if they're getting it from their internal medicine or their endocrinologist, that you can't scan them along the journey here and help them and be like, hey, it's great you got started, we're doing your tox stuff. don't forget, we're happy to do your body composition, come up with a plan, and that way, as you get closer to your goal weight, we can start working on preserving some of that muscle. Looking at where you need to make some changes and do some of those. And then you can be like, hey, happy to even send this report to your internal medicine doc, and then that's a great referral source for you because they're coming and doing those type of things. So just keep that in the back of your mind because I think sometimes people uh, uh, struggle. They love the idea, but struggle a little bit more to integrate this if they don't have weight loss in their office. But if you're in the aesthetic industry, you have patients that are on these medications in your office right now.
All right. I think that was
Amazing.
all of the questions that we are seeing. Yeah, thank you so much for all of the really useful advice and tips.
Yeah, that
Awesome.
was
I
super insightful.
appreciate you guys having me. This is great. It was so much fun, and can't wait to see some people at MAP in Scottsdale next week.
Yeah, that's next week, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we will be uploading the recording to our YouTube channel. We're going to email everyone. And yeah, thank you so much for joining today and volunteering your time, especially at such late hour.
Awesome. We'll see you guys.
Yep.